The white man has always thought white supremacy was helping him somehow, and it's true, it has helped us economically. But at what cost morally? At what cost emotionally, psychologically, spiritually? At what cost? Socially? People of color don't trust us, and rightfully so. They just generally do not trust us. White supremacy is toxic to the white man. It's toxic to our nation. It's immoral. It's unjust. It's unfair. It's unequal. The white man, until he fixes it, is cursed. Cursed. This nation is cursed. Until we fix our greatest evil, the greatest evil that we cannot even acknowledge, until we fix it, the white man in this nation will remain cursed.
Wetiko is a curse of the white man, and there is a spiritual sickness and a spiritual virus of the mind. Listen.
There is a contagious psychospiritual disease of the soul, a parasite of the mind, that is currently being acted out en masse on the world stage via a collective psychosis of titanic proportions. This mind virus, which Native Americans have called Wetiko, covertly operates through the unconscious blind spots in the human psyche, rendering people oblivious to their own madness and compelling them to act against their own best interests. Here is more information on Wetiko. Is there an epidemic of broken, undeveloped frontal lobes, of dysfunctional, maladjusted, deteriorating, and infected amygdalas? Narcissism and cluster B psychopathy run rampant in our culture, feeding on those who still have that innate ability to feel empathy and compassion, who possess a real soul and a kind spirit. Those dark and toxic parasitic Wetiko entities are cannibalistic, predatory, soulless, selfish, and hostile, a cancer of the soul, a shapeshifter. How sad. Just as viruses or malware infect a computer and program it to self-destruct, Wetiko programs the human biocomputer to think and behave in self-destructive ways. Covertly operating through the unconscious blind spots in the human psyche, Wetiko renders people oblivious to their own madness, compelling them to act against their own best interests. People under its thrall can, like someone in the throes of an addiction or in a state of trauma, unwittingly create the very problem they are trying to resolve, clinging desperately to the thing that is torturing and destroying them. People taken over by Wetiko are suffering from an autoimmune disease of the psyche. In autoimmune deficiency syndrome, the immune system of the organism perversely attacks the very life it is trying to protect. In trying to live, it destroys life, ultimately destroying even itself. In the same way, once Wetiko has insinuated itself into a living entity, it acts like a perverted antibody, treating the wholesome parts of the system as cancerous tumors to be exterminated. This problem is being collectively acted out on the world stage. Humans are destroying the biosphere of the planet upon which we all depend for our survival. Wetiko is at the bottom of the seemingly never-ending destruction we are wreaking on this biosphere. One example is the destruction of the Amazonian rainforest, the lungs of the planet. Another example is the Terminator seeds that are genetically engineered not to reproduce a second generation, forcing farmers to buy new seeds and making life impossible for many poor farmers. If the planet were seen as an organism, and people seen as cells in this organism, it would be as if these cells had become cancerous or parasitic, and had turned on the healthy cells, destroying the very organism of which they themselves were a part. Our species appears to be enacting a mass ritual suicide on a global scale. Paul Levy dispelling Wetiko, breaking the curse of evil, Quest 102.4, full 2014 pg. 146 to 151. Also from Paul Levy. Wetiko disease is an expression of the convincing illusion of the separate self gone wild. Bewitched by the intrinsic projective tendencies of their own mind, full-blown Wetikos are unconsciously doing the very thing they are reacting to while simultaneously accusing other people of doing it. Projecting the shadow onto others, they will accuse others of projecting the shadow onto them. To use an extreme but prototypical example, it is like someone screaming that you're killing them as they kill you. If their insanity is reflected back to them, they think it is the mirror that is insane. Suffering from a form of psychic blindness that believes itself to be sightedness, full-blown Wetikos project out their own unconscious blindness and imagine that others, instead of themselves, are the ones who are not seeing. Governed by the insane, self-perpetuating logic of fear and paranoia, those taken over by the disease fear that if they don't attack and rule over others, they are in danger of being attacked and ruled over themselves. In their convoluted, upside-down, flawless logic, Wetikos act to their own projections in the world as if they objectively exist and are other than themselves, thinking that they themselves have nothing to do with creating that to which they are reacting. In Wetiko disease, the psyche takes the terror that haunts it from within, and in its attempt to master it, unwittingly becomes taken over by it, thus becoming an instrument of terror in the world. We have then become the thing we most feared, creatures of the European nightmare world, as we psychologically terrorize ourselves, as well as terrorizing the world at large. Because full-blown Wetikos are soul murderers who continually recreate the ongoing process of killing their own soul, they are reflexively compelled to do this to others, for what the soul does to itself, it can't help but do to others. In a perverse inversion of the golden rule, instead of treating others how they would like to be treated, Wetikos do unto others what was done unto them. The Wetiko is simply a living link in a timeless, vampiric lineage of abuse. Full-blown Wetikos induce and dream up others to experience what it is like to be the part of themselves which they have split off from and denied, and are thus not able to consciously experience the part of themselves that has been abused and vampirized. In playing this out, Wetikos are transmitting and transferring their own depraved state of inner deadness to others in a perverse form of trying to deal with their own suffering. Paradoxically, Wetikos both try to destroy others' light, as it reminds them of what they've killed in themselves, while simultaneously trying to appropriate the light for themselves. The disease itself is now demanding that we pay attention to it, or it will kill us. An eye for an eye only makes the whole world blind. Gandhi. Native American philosopher Jack Forbes further adds, "This disease, this Wetiko, cannibal, psychosis, is the greatest epidemic sickness known to man. We, as a species, are in the midst of a massive psychic epidemic, a virulent collective psychosis that has been brewing in the cauldron of humanity's psyche from the beginning of time. Like a fractal, Wetiko operates on multiple dimensions simultaneously intrapersonally, within individuals, interpersonally, between ourselves, as well as collectively, as a species. Cannibalism, in Forbes's words, is the consuming of another's life for one's own private purpose or profit. Those afflicted with Wetiko, like a cannibal, consume the life force of others human and non-human for private purpose or profit, and do so without giving back something from their own lives. I only scratched the surface of what Wetiko is, but it scared the living hell out of me. Is this the world my grandson will inherit? How very, very frightening."
Racism is a part of the white people's culture, and it is a part of Wetiko. It is a disease and a sickness that they have. It's a curse, and it is something genetically in them. That's why if you have heard me say, racism is something in them. And at the end of the day, they are creating their own demise because it is toxic. They have become toxic. And they have to find a way to fix the sickness. But it's something that is in them and they don't see it, which makes it even worse because they don't know how to fix it. And at the end of the day, it's probably something that cannot be fixed because it's something genetically in them. It is a disease. And some things you don't have a prescription for. It just is. Wetiko is for those who do not have a soul. And I don't want nobody to get offended listening to this, but this is facts. Wetiko is a sickness of the spirit. It's a spiritual thing that cannot be fixed. And the only way that can fix Wetiko, disease, spiritual disease, is to have a soul. And when you do not have a soul, you fall up under the lines of having this disease. And unfortunately, it just is what it is.